Hello, everybody. I hope you are doing well. And this message is again for my fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, especially those who are in tribulation right now. Jesus told us ahead of time that we would have tribulation in John chapter 16, verse 33. He said we will have tribulation in this life. So we shouldn't be caught off guard, and we should know that it's normal. It's a part of our lives. But don't just stop there. But I want you to see these tribulations in the right light, in truth, not in darkness, not in shadowy, confusing situations where you think that these tribulations are trying to destroy you, because that's a lie. These tribulations that bring you to desperation, that leads you to depend on God alone, is a blessing. Okay, these desperate situations that come about by difficult circumstances are a blessing if it leads you to totally surrender and trust in God. And if you're not there yet, I encourage you to head that way. When you know that you cannot fix the situation, you don't have control over the circumstances or the future, and there is nothing in this world that could help you, let that desperation swell up to the degree where you are forced to look to Jesus alone and say, God, I have no control, but you do. God, I believe in what you say in the word and I trust in you. That kind of desperation is a blessing. So I'm not saying the circumstances are good, the difficult circumstances, but when it leads to that kind of desperation that leads to trust in Jesus alone, it is a blessing. The last video I talked about the lady who bled for 12 years, that desperation where she spent all her money and she only grew worse and worse led her to meeting Jesus and seeing Jesus as healer. And so I want to go over another example. This is from Mark chapter 5, verse 21 through 24. When Jesus had again crossed over by boat to the other side of the lake, a large crowd gathered around him while he was by the lake. Then one of the synagogue rulers, named Jairus, came there. Seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded earnestly with him. My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live. So Jesus went with him. Jairus was a synagogue ruler. If you recall in the New Testament, some of the people that opposed Jesus the most were the religious leaders. And so this is pretty amazing, seeing a synagogue ruler kneeling before Jesus, humbling himself, and pleading earnestly to Jesus to help him, to help his daughter. How did that happen? Yes, it was through a very difficult circumstance where his daughter was suffering likely and sick and dying. But don't just stop there. But look what that did. It led him to a desperate situation. It made him desperate for help, and he looked to Jesus for help. That's what this circumstance did for him. People back then, his friends and family might have said, I'm so sorry to hear that you're going through that. I'm so sorry that your daughter is sick. This is so wrong. Where is God? Maybe they might have said. And people might have said that to you. I'm so sorry you're going through what you're going through. Oh, I don't know how I could live if I was in your situation. I'm sorry to hear this. I'll pray for you. This is a disaster. You might hear that and you might feel the same way. And Jairus might have heard the same or similar thing. But I'm not going to read the verses here. But Jesus healed his daughter completely, even though she died. And so actually, after verse 24, we go into a section of when Jesus was supposed to be going to Jairus' house. That lady who bled for 12 years touches clothing and she was healed, and there's a whole section on that. And Jairus was probably in a hurry to bring Jesus to his daughter, but he had to wait here. And that just tells us that we should always be patient in the way God does things. But anyways, after Jesus heals that lady, he goes and receives news, or Jairus receives news that his daughter is dead. Like, don't bother Jesus anymore. He's dead, or she's dead. But Jesus goes over and says, don't fear, just believe. And then raises Jairus' daughter in front of his own eyes and brings her back to life. That desperation that swelled up within Jairus to humble himself before God and trust in him to heal his daughter was a blessing. Why? because he got to witness Jesus as someone that could resurrect the dead. The things that he heard about Jesus, he probably knows in his heart now that it's all true, that he is the Son of God. You see, this circumstance that created this desperation was a blessing, and this circumstance you're going through that is creating this desperation that's leading you to Jesus is a blessing. Would you rather have been a Pharisee back then that was powerful, respected, and rich, that never heard of Jesus and died? Or would you rather be this synagogue ruler who suffered? Yes, he went through tribulation. He saw his daughter suffer so much. But through that tribulation, created desperation for him to kneel before Jesus and witness and acknowledge. Hopefully he got to do that, witness and acknowledge that he is God. The tribulations are worth it. There's a purpose for them. The thing is, when you go through tribulation, you have an option. Just like when Adam and Eve was in the garden, they had the choice to either obey God by not eating the forbidden fruit, or they disobey God and eat it. When we go through tribulation, we have a choice. We can either submit to God through the hardship, through the circumstances, and trust in him, or we could not trust in him. We could just go our own way and try to do it our way. But through God's mercy, oftentimes he forces us to surrender. He closes off all doors. And my friend, that is a blessing. This is a blessing in your life. Jesus not only said that we will have tribulation, but he made it very clear on what it takes to follow him. In Luke chapter 14, verse 26 and 27, he says, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, his wife and children, his brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. And anyone who does not carry his cross and follow me cannot be my disciple." There is a huge commitment to following Jesus. Compared to loving Jesus, you should hate your own family. Your love for Jesus should be so much relative to anything else that it looks like hate. He wants your undivided attention, your love. He wants you to love him most above all things, and he wants you to carry your cross and follow him. And so some of the things that you may have to nail to your cross in order to follow him is to surrender your comforts. Maybe your sleep, the pain that you're going through. Maybe it's your reputation, the things you treasure in this life, like money, this or that. He wants you to let go of it from your heart. Not actually having to sell your house and sell everything and live on the corner of a street or somewhere. He's saying in your heart, let it go. Let your heart let go of even your family members when compared to your love for Jesus. He wants you all, and he needs you to go all the way. No middle way, no half step, no 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And so that's the question that I'm asking you at this time. Yes, you're under tribulation, it's hard. And he told you ahead of time the cost will be tribulation, the cost will be great. Give up everything for following Jesus. Will you do it? Are you willing to go all the way with Jesus in this life? Are you willing to take him at his word, that when he says that these tribulations come, that he's working it all for your good? Will you choose to believe that the desperations that are creating you is a bridge to learn to trust in God? It is an opportunity. It's like the wind pushing you into his arms so that you can feel his strength and an embrace and know his love, and for you to learn to totally surrender and trust in your shepherd. You can say no, and that'll always be worse than saying yes to Jesus. Remember, he called us sheep in the Bible, and he said it for a reason. I saw some documentaries where birds were pecking out sheep's eyes. They're that defenseless. And at the same time, I saw the shepherd or some hunter shooting those crows and those magpies trying to peck their eyes out. We need a shepherd that fights for us and defends us, like that hunter or shepherd shooting the enemies for them. We are far too weak and far too dumb like sheep to put up any kind of defense against our enemies. We need to rely on our shepherd. I saw a sheep actually jump off a cliff and another one follow suit. They both likely died. It was a huge cliff. We need to choose to follow the shepherd going the way that he wants us to go, instead of going to the cliffs where we feel like those new little grass leaves taste better than the leaves or the grass leaves that the shepherd is going towards. We need to follow Jesus if we want what's best for our lives. Any other second best is far worse. But you do need to count the cost before you follow Jesus and go all the way. And some of you are struggling with that. But let me tell you, it's not really an option there. It's like Adam and Eve. They shouldn't have ate that forbidden fruit. It was a no-brainer. There really was no option in terms of what makes sense. And the only thing that makes sense for you and me is to follow Jesus to our old gray age and continue to follow him until he takes us home. That's the best way for us to live. Don't resent the desperate situations, but let it push you into his arms. Don't complain. Don't have a self-pity party. Don't even listen to those who are trying to empathize with you how you're in such a bad situation, because you're not. The desperations that lead you to trusting God are a blessing. And just like Jairus was blessed, so shall you be if you trust in him. No matter what, no matter the circumstance, even if you see death, don't be afraid, but trust in Jesus. Do not fear, but just trust in Jesus. No matter how you feel, whatever pain you may go through, trust in Jesus alone, that he is working it for your good, and rejoice in him. In Thessalonians he says, rejoice always. How do you do that? It's because we have a sovereign God. It's because we have a God that loves us. He'll never let us down, and he will see us through. He has overcome the world, so we can take heart, even though there is tribulation. Our God is good. Our shepherd is mighty, and we don't need to fear, even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. For his rod and his staff comfort us. He fights for us. Our enemies don't stand a chance against our shepherd. When we go and run under his wings, he covers us, and nothing can harm us. The devil cannot touch us when we trust in him and rely on his arm to fight for us. So don't despair of your desperation, but count it as a blessing as you trust in him because of that desperation. God bless you.